Hey, everybody. This is Beyond the Dashboard, and I am Scott Schnaars, the founder of Urla. We're an AI platform that pulls all of your paid campaigns into a single place, finds the budget that you're wasting, and tells you exactly where to move it. In each episode of Beyond the Dashboard, I get to talk to the marketers who are actually out there doing the work, and they share what's working and what's flopped and what they might do differently. I'm joined today with Katerina Fotiadi, or Kat as she's known to her friends. Kat is a demand generation leader with over 15 years in digital marketing. She has a background in PPC and she focuses on inbound growth across PLG and sales assisted motions in B2B SaaS startups. But she's currently leading demand generation at SE Ranking. Hey, Kat, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott. I'm really excited to have this discussion today with you.
Cool. Well, let's jump right into it. You've spent 15 years in digital marketing, so your whole career has been in digital marketing with really deep roots in PPC. And I'm curious about how does that performance marketing foundation shape how you approach demand gen differently than somebody who came up through like content or through brand?
That's a very nice question, nice opening as well. I would say that people coming from, a PPC background, they're a bit more analytical, they're a bit more practical. So I could say, but we lack in other areas. So that would be the dreaming part, right? So we don't have this grand vision all the time. Usually, when you talk to people from brand, they see like the bigger picture, but we're kind of doing a more narrow view on things. We're really trying to measure everything, which is not really what's happening anymore with attribution on the state of things. So I would say that it does give me the right background to really understand deeply the business metrics and act on them. But then it kind of hinders me from seeing the bigger picture sometimes. So to me, it looks like the best combination is when you have someone with a PPC background and then another one from the brand side, and then it's the dream team.
You get a little bit of that right brain, left brain thing going,
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
really creates like the full experience. I think that's a really, really cool way to think about it. Can you walk us through a campaign that you're really proud of, that you worked on recently that you're really proud of? I'd love to know about what was the objective and what was the strategic bet that you made going into this?
Sure. So I actually have a recent example. It was probably towards the end of Q3, and it was the time when Google changed something. So what they removed was the top 100 results. And there was like a big fuss in the market, in the SEO industry. And so what happened, SEO tools, they really lost the ability to give this information within their platform. And this is actually a very important thing to have. So you can find opportunities and then you can optimize your rankings for that. So what we did at ranking, we acted very quickly on the product side. I believe that we had this metric back in the platform in 2 days, which is
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah,
And
that's
some
terrific.
competitors,
Good on your
yeah,
development team.
they really did an amazing job. Kudos to the team. And what happened is that other competitors, they didn't really act so fast. And what they did was they said, okay, maybe this is not such an important thing to have. And they tried to shape the narrative in that way. But to me and the team, it looked like a great opportunity to actually get some of their customers. Because let's face it, the market is so saturated. So the key way for us to get more customers is to get people to switch away from the platform. So how we approached it, like the goal was very simple. How do we get more people from these competitors over to S ranking? And what we did, we set up a full funnel campaign. Basically, we utilized everything we had at our disposal. And that would be PPC campaigns with Google search. Specifically, we already had competitor campaigns, but we set up specific messages around that pain point to really attract them and convert them. And that was also the first step we took just to validate this idea that we can really do it and do it in a proper way. We saw very positive signals from there. But then the other thing we did was go ahead with thought leadership content on LinkedIn, because this is where the audience is, right? So we tried to see if our messaging resonated with what the industry was thinking. And from the start, we saw great results there. We saw like very high CTR. I know this is a proxy metric, but it was something for us to validate our hypothesis. So high CTR, high dwell time on the post. So then we went ahead with paid promotion behind this post, and we all actually started adding more messaging around this campaign and the top 100 results on the website, on pricing page, pretty much everywhere, comparison pages, of course. So we did that, and then we went one step ahead also, and we work with Reddit. So
Mm,
communities is like a great example for these kind of changes in the market. We first of all we listened to what others were saying, and then with our community team we jumped into these discussions and we offered our alternative that hey, we exist, we offer this specific metric. You can try us for 14 days for free, and it really worked. And the last thing we did, it was of course to create a video YouTube Shorts just to address this whole situation, but also to promote it with
so
PPC.
smart.
The other part of that, like besides, I guess, the marketing department, is to align with the sales team, to align with customer success, and make sure that everyone knew what was happening and how to handle these discussions.
And you were
And in
able to
terms
do
of,
that, all of that before your customers were even out of bed, or sorry, your competitors, like even like were out of bed that day, like they were trying to figure it out.
yeah, yeah. And actually,
Light years ahead.
so the thing is, we moved really fast. So we dropped everything else that we were doing, everything we had planned, and we just worked on that. Everyone together. I believe from the announcement, it took us probably a week to set everything up, like the first wave of projects we pushed out, and then gradually we built up the rest of the things, like the YouTube video, and then community participation, all of that. It took us a bit longer, especially for the pages, but it was a very coordinated effort. I guess the real question here is in terms of results, like how do we measure such an integrated campaign? Because it's really hard, right?
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. So I'm glad you led with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, performance marketing background. So I always try to understand what's the impact on the business.
Yeah.
And in that case, just because it was the messaging that we put out everywhere, we couldn't say that, okay, this PPC campaign, we saw better results with this specific attribution model. So instead, how we measured the effectiveness is we measured the 2 months we ran the campaign against the previous months, and we could see like a huge spike in new MRR. And we also got qualitative feedback and also from sales recordings and all of that. And we saw that customers were actually switching from other platforms over to S ranking. So that was the validation. And that was like when we knew it was successful, it was really, really successful.
Yeah.
And especially in terms of new MRR, for us, it was, I guess, the 2 record months we had during that campaign. So it really worked very well.
That's fantastic. So you were saying that the moment that you knew, like when you started seeing like all of this traffic coming to your site from all of these different places, that's when you actually knew that this was working, right? There was never a point where you looked at that and went like, "Oh, we should pivot from doing this to that." Like you kind of nailed it out of the gate, and even before your competitors did, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say we were a bit lucky because we got such positive signals from the start,
Yeah.
but it's not always the case, right? So you have to really follow the proxy metrics that you set from the start and then see how they compare to the averages that you have from past campaigns, like similar time period, because also seasonality can affect quite heavily. And I can also say that you're never really sure that something is working until after it's finished and after you get the business results. So it's always, a bit of intuition and a bit of really doing a very data disciplined exercise.
Were there any signals that you were looking for early on that kind of led you to believe that okay, this is really going down the right path? Aside from, okay, we ran it for a couple of weeks and we saw all this great traffic and we got lucky there. Like, were there earlier signals, like a leading indicator that went like, okay, yeah, this is moving in the right direction for us?
I would say that validation came from communities like Reddit,
Okay,
because
great.
you can talk to actual people, not just see numbers in a dashboard. We got this feedback. So we started talking also to our customer advisory board just to understand their view on that. Because this is another important thing that sometimes demand generation leaders forget. You have customers, you have to go and talk to them, and this is how you can get instant insights.
Yeah.
So yeah, community, that's one. And then customers, of course, it's a great source of this feedback.
That's really smart, like pulling your cab into those conversations, and you probably had to pull them in very quickly because Google made this change overnight, and you guys reacted to it, and then it sounds like you had to get dozens, maybe even 100 people involved in all of these discussions, and sounds like you did an amazing job on it. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. And again, kudos to the team. Like everyone at S ranking, they really moved very fast.
When your executive team, when you're running a campaign like that and your executive team, so, and, in that case, it worked out really well. If it's not working out well and your exec team says, hey, well, what's changed in the world? Do you have a framework for answering that question without getting them lost in the weeds?
That's a very good question. So I can't say I have a specific framework for that, but something I've learned over the past year is to read the room, basically, and to learn from past experiences. So typically, especially a couple of years ago when I was not like a leader and I was more of a manager with a smaller team, I would go ahead and describe all the metrics we have, like everything I would look at, I would relay that to the leadership team. And I understood from their feedback that this is not what they're looking to hear, right? They just want to understand what's the impact on the business, what's the added value that you have
Yeah.
with a specific campaign, initiative, whatever. So it took me many years to really do this practice, this exercise, and learn from that. But then I came to a point where I started to read the room a bit more and understand what others are sharing and how is my feedback regarding the campaigns or the initiatives relating to that. Is it on the same level? Maybe they want higher level, maybe they want a bit more detailed because we had discussed it before in greater detail. So this is what I'm trying to do. But let's say high level what I do, I don't talk about CTR, I don't talk about impression share on Google,
Okay.
nothing like that. I usually talk in terms of lead volumes and in terms of the impact on the business and new MRR. And I also bring up some points in terms of qualitative feedback I may be getting from sales or I notice from sales recordings, which I think is a great tool for every demand generation leader out there. So this is the level that I try to keep it. And of course, I give them space if they are interested in the more specific details. We can talk about, CTR, we can talk about conversion rates, all of that. But I find that no one really wants this kind of information.
Tell me a little bit more. You just hit on something that is near and dear to my heart as an ex VP of sales, CRO, whatever you want to call it. You just said that sales recordings are a great tool for demand gen leaders to listen to. And as a sales leader, I always like listen to the tape and I have my reps listen to the tape. But I'm curious, like, what are you listening for when you go back and listen to those gong calls or whatever service you use to record them?
So I do two things. The first one, I handpick a couple of recordings and I go through them. The other thing I do is I have an automation in place so I can get a summary with the key things that I want to look out for. So I don't have to go through everything. But
Sure.
what I'm really interested in is, first of all, how do they frame their pain point? Like, why are they in the demo meeting in the first place? What is that they're looking for? And then I try to think, are we covering this pain point? Are we sending the right messaging on the pages, on our marketing materials, just to make sure that we are on the same page? We don't create our own narrative and we're so detached from the market. So that's one pain point and like the solutions they're searching for. The other thing I'm really interested in is what kind of tool are they using now? And why do they want to make the switch? Because at least in our case, this is usually how it happens. And in other saturated markets, I believe it's the same. So the reason is really important because if it's about pricing and pricing only, then we know how to adjust again the messaging and the activities we do. If it's something different that maybe we haven't understood from another side of the business, maybe this information never got to us, it's something that I will take, I will review, and then I would go to the respective teams to say, hey, we found this opportunity, maybe we can do a campaign, or maybe we can change something within the product itself. So I believe this is the kind of collaboration you should have with the entire organization and not just focus on sales and on marketing, and that's it.
How many of those calls how many times do you have to hear somebody ask for something or say a particular pain point till you realize it's a signal there versus just a one off?
I would say quite many times,
Okay.
especially when you're talking to a broad audience. You have to segment it by ICP, by the different segments you have within that ICP. So it's a process, but I would say if I had to give a number, 3 times would be
Okay.
enough.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, you're obviously not going to have to listen to every single
Yeah.
call that your sales team does. That would be impossible. But it's good that you have got the triggers in there to alert you on those types of things. Let's talk about creative fatigue a little bit because this is something that you've thought about quite a bit. Are there signals that you look at that tell you that an ad is dying versus it's just having a bad week?
Good question. So if it's just about a week, then I would do nothing. I
Okay,
don't really care about the stats for a specific week. I would say actually even 2 weeks. But if I notice a gradual decline in some of the proxy metrics like CTR, like engagement rate, and of course conversion rates and other metrics downstream, then I would start to create new ads and try to refresh things. The other thing I would look at is frequency. So if it's not a remarketing campaign where we want typically to have a higher frequency, if it's too high, then it means that we just bombarded our audience with that specific ad and we really need to change it. So typically what I do is I don't just kill the ad. I may kill it for a week or two and then I bring it back if it was a
okay.
good one. So I try to rotate in that manner so I don't create extra work for the design team, for copywriters, like for everyone involved, because it's really a lot of hours to find these ideas, to create these new banners or videos or whatever it is, and then to launch it again, wait for the approvals, for the algorithm to understand, okay, is this a good one? Is it a bad one? Am I going to promote it? Because at the end of the day, it all depends on the algorithm. So this is the
Sure.
main thing that we need to satisfy.
Kind of going back to, I heard Dave Kellogg recently say that we're all working for the algorithm.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to that. Do you see, is there a cost of refreshing an ad too late versus too early? And do you have an opinion on which mistake is worse?
I already have an opinion.
Okay, excellent.
Refreshing too early for me is really bad. It's really bad for the business, for productivity. Like you just spent extra time
Mm,
redoing the same thing again and again. So if you refresh too late, it's okay. Like no big deal because everyone has banner blindness. Like it's okay if I saw this banner maybe 10 times over the previous week, but if I saw this ad only 2 times in a week, the message didn't cut through. So we have to compete with other advertisers. They're doing some very creative things with their banners and their videos. And I don't think it makes sense for us to just be on this constant motion and refresh things again and again. And we just have to accept that it needs time to work. And it could be the case that it's not the banner itself or the video, it could be something else influencing the performance that we observe.
you, without giving out any internal trade secrets, are you playing with any tools yet that allow you to update or give you the capability to update the creative on the fly using AI?
Not really.
Okay.
I would actually say that I'm trying to move away a bit from banners and more
Okay.
into thought leadership ads on LinkedIn, because this is where I see that this is really working for everyone, not just for us. I see a very big shift on the market, and I see that the more native the ad is, the better it's converting, which makes sense.
Hmm.
So I don't pay too much attention on the banners anymore. They just need to be good enough to be around the benchmarks that we have, and that's it.
Okay. Um, let's talk about AI a bit because you're at an SEO company. You're watching AI reshape search in real time. What's changing about how people find and evaluate software? And tell me, like, what does that mean for demand gen?
Yes, so everything is changing. We all know it. Like we've all used AI systems to do our research. So what I'm noticing from my standpoint is that first of all, people don't click the blue links anymore. They may still search on Google, but they don't click. They just get their answer right there on Google's interface. And the same thing is happening with ChatGPT, Gemini, like all these other AI platforms, which means that AI is really taking all the content that we put up there. It's making a summary. It's making so own top list of suggestions, and that's it. So what happens is that potential buyers, they just click on the link that the system provides, just one or two maybe, instead of going through the regular research process. And then
Yeah.
the other thing we see is an increase in organic brand and indirect traffic. And that is again because the research is now not requiring people to click on the links, and they just do all the research in one place, and they just come to us at the final stage of research when they're pretty much ready to make the decision. So instead of evaluating 10 different vendors, they would do that with 2 or 3. So this is the shift that I'm
Yeah.
seeing, and I believe everyone else on the market, they're seeing the same. And also a lot of them, they're panicking because they don't know what to do with
Sure.
that. Yeah, but maybe that's another topic, but there are things they can do, but not everyone knows yet exactly what.
Well, that's tell me what your thoughts are. Do you think that that's good or bad for the consumer, right? You're kind of narrowing every consumer down to these like top 2 or 3 brands, whereas like number 7 in the market might be the best fit for you and you'll never find out about it. And I'm wondering how, like, if I'm the number 7 player, how do I bubble my way up to be shown in that kind of top 1 or 2?
So the thing here is that AI systems, they provide very personalized suggestions because they have the context. So if you were to search for the best SEO tool, for example, on Google, you would have to go through all the different tools that are offered. And some of them, they're best fit for agencies, some others for smaller businesses, some others for freelancers. But when you do the search, let's say on ChatGPT, it knows because it has also your history, unless you start from a blank page. It knows that, for example, you are a small business, you care about this and that. So it really tailors the response to the companies that they suggested. Now, in terms of the brand side and how you can get to these results, it takes a lot of things. It takes a lot of coordination, and it requires breaking down silos that we have right now in marketing. So it's not the job of an SEO professional anymore. It's actually a much bigger job because you would have to not only get the right content, you would have to optimize for prompts. You would probably have to create good listicles on other websites. You would need to have brand mentions on reputable websites, but also on social media. So there's a bunch of different factors that really define if you're going to be cited by LLMs.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. And I liked how you said that it's a much bigger job. I think that's really interesting. One thing that you shared with me while we were preparing for this is that, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart, is that you said that company blogs are slowly dying. And as a new founder doing a lot of writing, putting a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, I'm curious to get your take on that. And really, what should content teams be doing instead of their company blog?
Yeah, so I said
Coach me
that. I
here, Kat.
know.
Coach me.
So when I say that traditional company blogs are dying, I mostly mean the ones that had very top of the funnel content. And if you worked on creating blog posts, you naturally get into this place where you run out of ideas. So then how to expand the content that you write about, you try to get these informational queries and you try to optimize for them. So how to do XYZ, this kind of queries.
Right.
But this comes with a problem in this new AI search era, and that is LLMs, they just take this information, they recycle it, and they summarize it, and they give the output within their own interfaces, which means that no one is going to click on the blue link to go to your website, to the blog post, and then read it. So this kind of content, I don't think it makes sense unless there's a very specific and strategic reason behind that for teams to actually work on. But instead of that, what we've been doing at S Ranking, and I think it's the right way to go, it's creating unique content. It's not about creating more content, but rather we focus on researches, we run experiments, we come up with new angles on how to look at data. And then we publish these researches to educate the SEO market and our audience. And I think this is where real conversations start to happen because this is much closer to middle of the funnel compared to top of the funnel, as it was the case before with these blog and blog articles. So I think the shift that we all need to do is to start being more intentional about the content we write about and also how are we adding the right value for our users.
And what does that value look like in terms of what you're working on in that regard?
So, for example, in our case, we're really interested in AI search and how it's
Okay.
changing SEO. I mean, this is a very hot topic right now on the
Yeah.
market. And what we're trying to do is to uncover specific LLMs like ChatGPT. How can we influence it? How can someone get cited in ChatGPT? Maybe then another thing we're looking at are the factors. So whoever is already getting mentioned, we go in and analyze and understand, okay, do they have enough brand mentions? Do they have a new domain or maybe an old domain, so a more established one with more backlinks and authority? So we try to look at these things and then give the insights to our audience so they can do a better job on their own without having to go through this research. And also, probably they would not have enough data to do that. So this
Okay.
is the way that we think about how can we create additional value for our users and our audience in general.
Yeah. That's terrific. Where do you see AI really truly speeding up demand gen work, and where do you think that people are using it as a crutch?
I will start by saying that I both love and hate AI.
I think you're in the same camp as a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah, probably. So AI can be used to speed up a lot of things, but it's mostly about the repetitive things and things that do not require a lot of thinking because you can't outsource thinking to AI systems. So what we've automated and it's really sped up the work. It's blog posts, at least the outlines, or maybe the research. Or if we do a specific content piece in a specific manner, then we just give it to AI. The other thing with research, it can be used in many different areas. So we are using it in product marketing teams, we're using it in demand generation teams, and then other teams within demand generation, they also use it for specific purposes. Or, for example, we can use it for monitoring competitors and what they do. But this would go a bit to AI agents, and it's not like the classical ChatGPT use. But I would say it's a good thing. On the other side, I can see that some people are outsourcing their thinking, which is a very tricky situation. And AI can never get original ideas. It's built just to recycle what's already been
Yeah.
said, which means that teams that are using AI to generate new ideas on what campaign to run or what creative to create with a design team, they're not heading in the right direction in my
Yeah, it really targets the average of everything, and nobody wants to be seen as average, right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Uh, Go into your PPC expertise because this is your depth area here. You've run global PPC across different markets, and you and I have talked about like how does it change from one region to another. And I'm really interested in knowing what works in one region that just doesn't work at all in another region.
Yes, I can say that the biggest difference I see is between the US market and then European markets. I have a specific example. So we run the same campaigns in terms of theme to the US and in Spain. And we can see that the clusters we're targeting, the keyword clusters, they're behaving in a very different way. So, for example, in Spain, more informational keywords, they work much better, even for PPC. So the behavior there is they really want to understand first. They check how to do this, how to do, for example, how to do keyword research, which is probably not like the best SEO persona we would target from our side at S ranking, but still they start the research very early and then they convert at a later date, but they still convert. Whereas someone from the US, they would probably search for SEO tool or best SEO tool. Then they would check out the website, they would start a trial, and then there would be a lag between the time of trial conversion up until the paid conversion. Because what we see is that they typically have a buying committee. So in Europe, you have smaller teams, so you don't have all these approvals and all of that to really go to your manager and convince them about this new tool that you want to purchase. So we can see these differences when we work with PPC in terms of the time to go from one stage to another in the funnel and also the kinds of keywords that we're targeting.
Okay. So just to kind of summarize that, US has a much more complex buying process. Europe has a fairly straightforward buying process. And the way that you run PPC to that is has to be a little bit different to support those two different models.
Exactly. And also another key difference that I'm noticing is
Yeah.
seasonality. So in Europe,
More or
we
less
tend
so in Europe.
more, way more.
Yeah.
I
Just because
mean,
people are off for the summer and
yes, exactly.
okay.
So summer, especially August, I believe, in
Yep.
Europe, it's kind of a dead season, right? But
Oh
in the
yeah, it's awful.
US, it's not. So we have these differences, and then we need to forecast our budgets and our results in the right way if we want to have good budget accuracy, but also good attainment in terms of the targets we set with MQLs and so on.
I think that the US needs to adopt the European school of thought there for taking August off and kind of recharging the batteries. In closing, this is the last question that I have for you, Kat, and I really appreciate you being here today. What is a best practice in demand gen that you think is either outdated or overrated?
Best practice. Okay. I
But I'll
can
put best
say
practice in quotes.
I can say that I know what are the best practices. I don't really follow the news in that way. So to me, whenever I see something, especially on LinkedIn, but also Reddit, something that worked for someone, I always try to think in terms of my context, is it appropriate or not? And then I try to test it. So only after I test, I can say, okay, this is working for us. So this is now a best practice for us, for a specific industry, our specific company. So I don't think that these more general best practices can apply to other businesses. So this is why I can't really say that something is overrated or underrated. I think that if you see something that makes sense to you on LinkedIn or somewhere else, go ahead, try it, experiment with it, and then you can decide if it's a best practice for you or not.
Best practices have to be personalized, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely.
Kat, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate the time. Where can people find you if they want to follow up with you?
I guess on LinkedIn, this is where I hang out most of the time. So you can just drop me a message there.
Cool. Everybody follow up with Kat afterwards. Thank you again, Kat. This has been great. This has been Scott Schnaars from Beyond the Dashboard. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks so much, Scott.